It's Wednesday. It's another edition of Speed Chronicles. I'm Todd Lewis. Thanks for checking it out on the RevTV YouTube channel. Do it every Wednesday at RevTV, at Todd Lewis Sports. If you've got thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, feedback, we just kind of talk about racing stories, motorsport stories, business part of it, and all other items that we can get into. What we really don't focus on too much is results, which is kind of the difference between us and a lot of other performances and programs that like this. So a few things from this past weekend and looking ahead to the upcoming Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. I like to specify because I spend time on both sides of the border. And when you're in the US and you say Thanksgiving, everyone thinks of November. And when you're in Canada and you say Thanksgiving, everyone thinks of October. So Canadian Thanksgiving, because that's the first of the two Thanksgivings. And that's the cool part, is I enjoy celebrating both of them. We're kind of winding down the season in terms of on-track action and outdoor activity in Canada because the weather's not really conducive to it. They did run at Flamborough this past weekend in Southern Ontario. Some others have taken place. There's a few others. Peterborough, of course, has Autumn Colors coming up this weekend, and there's a few others left over to finish out the final remaining weeks of the schedule. And then we'll get into hibernation mode, so to speak, for Canada. But it's not really a hibernation mode at all. In fact, everyone's kind of thinking back to how their season was in 2024, what they liked, what they didn't like, some things that they can maybe do better, some things they can maybe improve on, and also starting to plan and look ahead to 2025. That's sort of a constant process, as you're always looking forward, you're always looking to the next thing, you're always looking for ways you can be better and improve, and that's kind of what's taking place right now. There's partner meetings, there's sanctioning bodies that are having meetings with teams and their partner. The teams, of course, are all working and assessing their on-track performance, plus the business part of it with any partners that they have and moving forward. As much as you're busy during the summer and during the year, but that's more focused on track, you're at least as busy during the off season for professional race teams. You're just not racing every weekend or every other weekend or however often you get out there. So it is a busy time. There's lots going on. There's lots of activity, lots of discussion. We'll get into some of the topics that have percolated up to the top of the surface as well. And one of them I wanted to talk about was NASCAR this past weekend, because when you go to the big super speedways, that always gets a lot of people's attention. Everyone sort of focuses on it. It's a big deal. I sort of describe my thinking and my feeling about plate races for Talladega and Daytona as sort of a love-hate relationship. I love close racing. I really do. I want to see racers fighting for position. I want to see battles for position. I don't care whether it's for first and second or 10th and 11th and 12th or 15th through 18th. I like to see close racing. And when you go to Talladega and you go to Daytona, that's what you get, is you get a lot of really close racing. The trouble is when you get 20 or more cars that are side by side and bumper to bumper, and 2, 3, or as we saw at times, 4 rows wide up on the track, inevitably there's going to be a small mistake, a small miscalculation, or something unexpected in terms of little aerodynamics or wind buffeting, or somebody moves reflexively and necessarily not of their doing. What happens is a small mistake turns into a big calamity. You have some contact between a couple of competitors, and inevitably, because you have cars that are running so close together, you pile up a whole bunch of other cars. It is inevitable. I don't know how exactly we marry our desire for super close racing and excitement, but also keep from wrecking millions of dollars worth of race cars. Is this an impossible ask? I don't know if it's impossible. Are there ways that we can be better? I think we always have to be searching for that. For instance, at Talladega this past weekend, 28 cars got piled up in a wreck. And congratulations, you set a new record for the most cars involved in a NASCAR Cup Series wreck. 28 out of 40 cars on track. Congratulations on the record, but I don't know that it's one that you really want to tout as being fantastic. We have heard drivers and teams and stakeholders talk about making changes technically to allow the drivers a little more input, to try to get away from the huge packs of cars of 20, 22, 24 cars, big packs of cars like that. They've tried to give the drivers more tools. They've continued to look at and work at and focus on changing the performance package and how to make that happen. We love it though because it's exciting and because it's dramatic. And did you see any of the promos on television or online for NBC for the race this past weekend at Talladega? How many crashes did you see? How many phrases did you hear? We've got to avoid the big one, or is the big one inevitable? It's coming. We're waiting for it. I don't want to wait for crashes. I understand that it is part of racing, and I understand that part of the appeal is the danger, is the potential for disaster, and drivers being on the verge of spinning out or losing control at every corner on every lap. That's part of the appeal, and that's part of the excitement. That's part of what draws us to it, is the high speed and the on the edge of performance. But I don't know that it has to be inevitable that we're going to pile up 15, 18, 20, 22, or in this case, 28 cars inevitably at least once at every one of these super speedways. And I think that we have to set this as a mission and a goal to try to get away from this. I don't want to be the cliche of, oh, everyone watches the racing for the crashes. I know there's a contingent that does. But maybe we need to do something to stop that. Maybe we need to figure out a way that if we're going to restrict performance, then we have to get away from drivers having to run full out, full throttle, every lap, never lifting. We have to find a way to do that. I know there's been well, if you take the spoilers off the cars and give them unlimited horsepower, then the drivers will have to brake. And that's true. Yeah, it might be a bit of an extreme solution. So maybe there are some things that we can do to look at. I know NASCAR is not ignoring this. And I know that as part of their never-ending search for safety, that this is all taken into consideration. But maybe we have to have a bigger effort in this area. I love close racing. I like to see cars battling for position. I don't like to see 20 or 25 cars getting wrecked and caught up in an accident and literally causing millions of dollars of damage. I don't think that's a healthy way to run the sport. Yeah, sure, it's only 2 at Talladega and it's only 2 at Daytona, but it's an awful lot of cars and equipment that are sacrificed. When you have 28 cars involved in a wreck, as you did at Talladega, you were also going to have officiating headaches, as we saw at Talladega. Excuse me. There's been a lot of attention, a lot of grumbling, a lot of griping about NASCAR officiating over the last couple of weeks. Now, you can look at this a couple of different ways. Does it mean that NASCAR has taken another step towards becoming one of the big major sports like the NFL or like baseball or basketball or hockey or something where everyone constantly complains about officiating? No, because complaining about officiating has gone on in motorsports for, well, as long as I can remember and been involved and been a fan of it. It's always gone on, but maybe it's getting a little more attention now because there are so many platforms. There's so much area for dialogue on social media and in the mainstream media to some extent. Are they going to get everything right all the time? No. What do we always ask for in terms of consistency when we're talking about officiating in any sport? It's consistency. Consistency. We want the same rulings for everyone in every case. Now, not every set of circumstances is exactly the same, so sometimes that's hard. It's hard also to communicate with one voice to multiple teams, drivers, safety workers, officials when you have 28 cars involved in a wreck. When you have that many cars involved in a wreck, and every one of those teams and drivers is going to be screaming to the official that is right in front of them or on the radio or however they can, that they want to be looked after first and give them the best opportunity to get back in the race, yeah, you're maybe going to have some inconsistencies. There's got to be an order of operations in terms of how you deal with these wrecks. And when you have different safety workers working at different races, it's approached a little bit differently too. Safety, of course, paramount. That's the first thing that you have to deal with, including not just the drivers and the teams, but the safety workers out on the track. For instance, NASCAR went back yellow a little sooner than they should have this past weekend. They lifted the red flag, they restored the yellow flag, but then didn't send the caution vehicle. There was a bit of a schmozzle there. And again, I'm not crapping on anybody for how they officiated. They're doing their best. But how you approach it and how you deal with that many cars is a bit of a challenge for everyone. So again, this is another reason to maybe look at and try to get away from some of these huge pileups in cars. I hope we can find a way to get close racing, but not have packs of cars where inevitably we get 24 cars involved in a wreck in NASCAR. We mentioned this a little bit last week. Confirmed, INDYCAR will have a new event in March of 2026. Of course, the 25 schedule is already out, but March of 26, it will be around the football stadium and the baseball stadium in Arlington, Texas. It's cool. It's a big market. It's got big players involved. It's got both of those sports of Major League Baseball and the NFL and their ownership who are partnering with INDYCAR to be part of this. This is great. The layout looks cool. Let's light them up. Let's go. I think it'll be fantastic. There's also been the obligatory whining of, well, how come we aren't at Texas Speedway? There's a great speedway in Texas. Why don't we just go race there? Okay, few things. For what, 5 years or more, the racing was really crappy at Texas Speedway. Fans have dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. The last race in 23 was good. I'll give you that. Leading up to that, racing was pretty crappy. Fans had dwindled. Crowds had dwindled. All those bellowing for more ovals, you got to show up. They can't agree on a date. You need the track and the series to agree on a date. They haven't been able to do that. So they're not racing at the oval. But you know what? Here's a cool event. This is Roger Penske bringing in his business partners because he does business with Jerry Jones in the NFL and the Texas Rangers and baseball. There's relationships there. This is good news. This is Penske using his connections. We need more of this. Let's have more of this. This is all very positive. So I'm excited for the new event. Course layout looks great. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be a very good event. So I'm curious to see it. Got to figure out a way to get there now to enjoy that first one. I haven't mentioned NASCAR Canada yet, but that things are pretty quiet. And I said this before. There was a social media post from the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières that ticket renewals are available for the 2025 event. It will be August 8th through the 10th next year. So you can mark that in your calendars that GP3R is going to be coming back and looking forward to that. That's not really a surprise, much like we expect the two CTMP dates to be happening on the May long weekend and the Labor Day long weekend. Those will be taking place again, but there's a lot of other things that are still going on as well. IMSA's got their final event of the season, Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta. Super cool course, nice long endurance race of 10 hours. Looking forward to seeing that. One other bit of IMSA news, the FAF Motorsports team, a great staple in the GTD category for the last couple of years. There was a story that came out that they're not 100% done and committed to being back for next season yet. The story came out that they're looking for dollars, they're looking for partners or funded drivers or some way to redo the business aspect of it. Without going into some details that I'm not fully familiar with, I will say that there is a lot to this story. It's not simple. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that I'm led to believe are taking place there. So we'll see. I hope it works out. They're a terrific competitor. They're a great story. The finish at the Rolex a couple of years ago is going to be on promos for the next 50 years with the plaid Porsche banging through the bus stop and going on to win. That's pretty spectacular. So I hope that they can confirm themselves and get back into the game for sure, full-time, 100% for 2025. One other little tidbit I wanted to mention that sometimes gets people's attention is celebrities, movie, television, show business people that get involved in racing. And Keanu Reeves did this past week at Indianapolis. He was a participant in the Toyota GR Cup Series. It gets attention. It gets mainstream media attention to help grow the sport. It's good. It's funny, some of the phrases that they use and the ways they project the story sometimes. But you know what? If it draws attention to the sport and draws attention to a good series and a good event, then I'm okay with it. And Keanu Reeves, I don't know if he had to stay above 50 miles an hour like he did in Speed, but you know what? If he's involved in racing and had a good time with it, then I think it's positive. So that'll wrap up this week's edition of Speed Chronicles. We thank you for checking it out. We'll do it every Wednesday. If you have thoughts, ideas, comments, at RevTV, at Todd Lewis Sports, on the social channels, on X and on Instagram. In the meantime, have a great week. And if you're in the path of that hurricane, please stay safe.